Hey, it's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Today, our friend Anunaya Singh writes in and says, I can never understand how to balance my strength training and my cardio/speed training. Because when I do cardio, I sacrifice my strength, and when I do strength, I can't move as fast. Okay, that's a very common concern. And because of that common concern, a lot of martial artists skip the strength training because they want to feel fast when they move. And a big part of this problem comes from the fact that everybody tries to do everything at once. Whereas if you want optimal results, separate your strength training and your martial arts technique and sparring training into different sessions. For example, have a strength and conditioning session in the morning or afternoon or evening, and have your technique and sparring session at a different point in the day. Problem solved for the most part. But what about cardio? Let's go back to the cardio myth. Cardio is largely a state of mind, but as far as the reality of cardio, you're probably doing enough if you are taking a regular martial arts class. For example, if you are in a Muay Thai, a kickboxing class, something like that, what does that class usually consist of? Let's say it's a 2-hour class. You probably do some type of warm-up. Maybe you run around. Maybe you do some calisthenics for 30 minutes, something like that. You do some dynamic stretches. You kick around. You do some shadow boxing for 3 rounds. You do 3 rounds of bag work. You do 3 rounds of pad work. You do some technical drills where you're jumping around, getting sweaty and breathing, and all of this stuff. What is that stuff? It's cardio. And then you do some sparring at the end. 2 hours, essentially, of cardio. How much more cardio do you need? Do you need more than 2 hours of cardio a day? Probably not, man. Probably not unless you're training for marathons. Now, there are professional fighters who go out there and will do a 30-minute rope skipping session before that, and at the crack of dawn, they will go out and do an hour of road work. And those maniacs are setting a very high bar for the normals out there, thinking, oh, I guess I should be doing more cardio. When in fact, if you're attending that 90-minute, 2-hour class, that's really all the cardio you need. Now, if you get up in the morning and do 90 minutes of lifting, let's say you do a 5x5 strong lifts program on deadlifts and squats twice a week, and maybe a bench press and pull-ups too, okay? That's not going to kill your strength, man. That's going to give you the extra pop that you need behind your movement. But of course, if you do that strong lifts program right before you start your technique and sparring, you're obviously going to feel slow and depleted, because you will be depleted. Because you would have spent all that energy. You need time to recover. It's as simple as that. And transversely, if you do a whole bunch of cardio right before you lift weights, you'll have suboptimal lifting. And this brings me to one of the biggest myths that bro science, gym bro science, has contributed to the world of misinformation regarding training and cardio. And that is the idea that you need to hop on a treadmill or an elliptical machine or a stationary bike at the gym for 30 minutes to an hour before you lift your weights, because you got to warm up. No, my friends, warming up does not mean becoming physically warm or sweaty or hot or breathing hard. It does not. It means preparing yourself physically and psychologically to do a specific movement. So, for example, if you were going to squat heavy weights, what do? Well, do some body weight squats first to get your muscles primed. for the idea of squatting, and then you put the bar on your back with no weights on it, and you do some squats with just the bar, and then you progress up to some lighter weights, and then eventually you move up to your working load. As opposed to starting with the working load and just shocking your system, and your body starts screaming, "I wasn't ready." A warm-up for squatting is not jumping on a treadmill and running on it like a hamster in a wheel for 30 minutes to get all hot and sweaty, because what does that do? It just burns up your energy stores, and it will lead to a suboptimal lifting session. So separate your strength training and your cardio training, and that's going to solve all of your problems, my friend. All of them. And you might be thinking, well, I don't have time to do a 2-a-day training session like a professional fighter. I don't have 2 hours to dedicate to lifting in the morning and 2 hours to dedicate to technique and conditioning at night. Let's go back to that 5x5 strong lifts program. Okay, what's a 5x5 program? It's a very simple one, and it's one I recommend to a lot of beginners who are not experienced with weightlifting. First, learn the form of the deadlift, of the squat, of the bench press, of the pull-up. Make sure you can do those movements with an empty bar, competently, with good form, so when you put some actual weight on there, it's not going to crush you or injure you because you're moving incorrectly. Okay? And once you do that, you put a little bit of weight on, right? And then you do 5 sets of 5 reps each, with a little break in between. How long is that going to take? How long does it take you to do 5 squats? Let's just count that out. 1, down, up, 2, breathe, down, up, 3, down, up, 4, down, up, 5, down, up. Okay, that's a matter of seconds. Then you take a break, you rest a minute or two, and then you do it again. You can hammer out those squats in a few minutes, and most of those minutes are recovery time. Do not be impatient with the recovery time. This is a big beginner mistake that I see and fell prey to myself as a younger man. The idea that I'm in the gym, so I got to get hot and sweaty and work and work and work and get exhausted. Whereas the reality is we have to spend a great deal of time recovering for the next movement, which will more efficiently make us stronger faster. In other words, lift heavy things. So you do that 5 times, 5 sets of 5. And then after a couple of weeks, you add a little bit of weight onto that, just a little bit. Like maybe 2.5 kilos. 5 if you're feeling ambitious. Just a few pounds or a few kilos on that bar. And then you do that again. You deadlift or you squat. Or both. Yeah, both. Yes. Twice a week. Give yourself a rest period in between. At least 24 hours. Better yet, 48 hours in between. So you're only doing lifting basically twice a week. If you're doing the squats and the deadlifts, which are the lifts I would recommend to all combat sports athletes. If you want to optimize your weightlifting and get the most bang for your buck. Now, if you're out there doing every lifting machine, every accessory, every bicep curl, all of this, and making your arms feel all puffy and stiff, then, yeah, of course you're going to feel slow. And you won't get the type of gains that you would from simply squatting and deadlifting heavy. When I say lift weights, a lot of people think, pick up stuff with the arms and do overhead presses and lat pull downs and do all the machines in a gym. I'm not talking about that. Just pick up a barbell, simplify as much as possible. I love Lou Schuster's book, The New Rules of Lifting. Go check that out. It's a great one. It's a great book because it strips away all the unnecessary parts of weightlifting and leaves you with a pretty bare bones program. Because the human body's only capable of so many ways of moving. Pushing, pulling, twisting. And that's about it. And In the intro of that book, Lou Schuster, he says that if he were able to design his perfect gym, it would be a big parking lot with a bunch of old cars in it that you could push or you could pull. And that would be about it. In his estimation, those would be the perfect exercises to get the most bang for your buck, to get the biggest returns on your time. Just get these big, heavy objects that you can move around, right? But as far as barbells go, the squat, the push, the deadlift, the pull, put those together and what do you have? The best returns on your time. And if you stick to a 5x5 program, adding a small amount of progressive overload over time, every 2 weeks just add a few pounds or a few kilos, depending on how you measure weight, you'll find within a number of months your strength has doubled. And then you'll get to this magical phase where you're able to deadlift your own body weight, squat your own body weight, and then 1.5 times that you'll be like, whoa. And then 2 times your body weight, you'll be throwing people around on the mat that'll be staring at you like you're some type of wizard. When you get to 2.5 times your body weight on the deadlift or the squat, oh man, people are going to be saying, you're so strong, you're a monster. When you get up to 3 times, oh man, watch out. That's going to be some crazy strength. You really don't need more strength than that to be a great martial artist, but if you've got it, good. And then there's also this idea, well, if I get stronger, I'm going to get bigger. Strength is not the same thing as hypertrophy. Growing the muscles, making them bigger. If you want to get bigger, you have to eat more. You have to increase your caloric intake. If you want to get stronger, what do? Progressive overload over time. And those are not necessarily the same things. Now, you will reach a point eventually where you become as strong as you can be for your size, and then to get stronger, you would have to put on some more size, but you're not there yet, most likely. But stick to a simple program like that, and eventually you will be. So, yeah, man, separate the cardio and the lifting. Make lifting its own special endeavor, and again, it can be a very, very short training session. Again, a 5x5 on a squat, if you include a 2-minute rest period, let's give you a generous 2-minute rest period between each lift, okay? So let's say you have 2 minutes for your warm-up, right? And then it's going to take you 10 to 15 seconds, unless you're really struggling and going slow. Let's say 20 seconds, right? 20 seconds for each lift, okay? And that's 5 lifts. That brings us up to how many? 20, 40, 60, that's a minute. A minute 20, a minute 40. Okay, that's a minute 40 of actual lifting, and man, you'll be done in a quarter of an hour, okay? And if you want to be ambitious, do your squats and your deadlifts on the same day, you'll be done in half an hour. You don't have to spend hours and hours in the gym doing your strength and conditioning. So I hope that helps, my friend. You can be strong, and you can be fast, and you can be flexible all at the same time. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train.